What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Summer Cup Great League Edition, and the team we're going to be taking a look at today is Shadow Fortress, Poliwrath, and Shadow KINGDRA. Yes, this is the exact same team that I showcased in the last video, so if you've already seen that video, it's just going to be more of the same. These are still battles from my live stream. I just went on such a crazy win streak with it that I had even more battles to showcase today. But today the focus is going to be Shadow KINGDRA, and this thing put on a clinic. The pacing of Dragon Breath to Swift and even Outrage is truly incredible. So I just wanted to highlight that today. Of course, Fortress and Poliwrath both held their weight in these matchups, but let's take a look at what KINGDRA can do against the Summer Cup. Okay, into the first match, we've got Fortress into KINGDRA. So this is a fantastic lead, and the opponent is staying in, and then they end up safe switching into an Oranguru, which I would argue is even worse than KINGDRA. So I'm definitely just going to stay in this matchup, connect with a Rock Tomb, and now I'm going to switch into my KINGDRA. I end up getting a catch of the Brutal Swing, which is really nice, because that means their attack has not been re-risen all the way back up. I will now go for the Swift to pick up the knockout, unless my opponent wants to commit a shield, and they actually do commit a shield. That's pretty interesting. This could be enough for the Trailblaze, so I will respect it as it is neutral damage, and now I will look to go for the full farm down. However, the opponent has a different idea. They instead pivot into their Empoleon, and Empoleon is able to outpace me to their charge move, pick up the knockout with the Drill Peck, but that is okay. Unfortunately, I'm lagging like crazy, which means I miss an entire counter. Hopefully that doesn't end up costing me this game. But I'm going to go for the full farm down, and I'm not able to get it because I didn't get that counter through, which is absolutely fantastic. Appreciate that the game is still not working as intended. However, they end up pivoting into their Oranguru only to get Bug Bite farmed down. Back in comes the Empoleon also to get Bug Bite farmed down, and now finally in comes the KINGDRA. KINGDRA, of course, will outpace me because they had some residual energy. They end up baiting with the Swift, but it does not matter because I'm still going to get to the Rock Tomb before they're able to full send the Outrage. And that picks up the knockout on the KINGDRA, and we're still able to take that win. Okay, into the next match, we've got a terrible lead. We've got Fortress into Diggersby. So I'm going to play this matchup out how I did in the last video, go for 10 Bug Bites, and then try and catch on my KINGDRA. The opponent holds on to their energy, and now they actually are going to connect with a Scorching Sands before pivoting out of this matchup. And in the back is Empoleon, so I'm not really sure actually why they even chipped if they had such a dominant Pokemon in the back. That is a complete wall to energy from the KINGDRA. That said, the opponent allows me to get to back-to-back Swifts. The pacing on Shadow KINGDRA is just absolutely incredible. They get to 1 HP. They should have gotten KO'd there. They ended up throwing at the very last second, and they got damage registration error. So they do pick up the knockout right as they get to the back-to-back charge moves, but somehow they get damage registration error twice, and 2 one-turn fast moves don't pick up the knockout before they're able to get to 2 charge moves off, which is definitely not how it's supposed to work. Either way, I'm able to come in with my Fortress, go for 10 more Bug Bites, catch this time on my Poliwrath, and this catch actually was successful. The opponent will make it to a charge move here, but everything that Crustle learns is resisted in this matchup, so I will just let this go, and now I can connect with an Icy Wind, and then look to fully farm down the Crustle. I'm hoping that I can just survive the next charge move, but at this point, I kind of want my Poliwrath to get an Icy Wind off on this Diggersby so that I can survive a double super effective Fire Punch on my Fortress. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I end up countering down the Crustle, coming out with an Icy Wind loaded. Icy Wind is still super effective damage, so the opponent will end up committing a shield, and now I'm going to pivot into the Fortress. Fortress, of course, hardest hitting move I can go for here really is the Sand Tomb, because Rock Tomb is resisted. I mean, Rock Tomb would probably do slightly more damage because it's just a better move. But that said, I go for the Sand Tomb. They no shield that. They get to the Fire Punch. I'm able to make it to a second Sand Tomb. This should grab the final shield from the opponent, but now it's a race, and the opponent just cannot get to enough charge move before they get farmed down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got the battle of the Bug Steals. We've got Fortress into Scizor, and the opponent is staying in this matchup. I'm going to play this matchup out pretty much the same way I did in the last video as well. I'm going to shield up the Night Slash, hoping they don't get the boost, but they actually do end up getting the boost. This is the double attack boost, which is really unfortunate. Now I'm going to go for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to grab a shield from my opponent, but now I know I can survive the Night Slash, even though they did get bailed out with that double boost. They end up pivoting into the Gastron, allowing me to maintain switch, which is actually huge here, because now I can align my KINGDRA on the Gastron and keep my Poliwrath alive for the Scizor if it ever comes back in. And now I'm going to look to connect with an Outrage. This will do massive damage to the Gastron unless they commit the shield. They do not. They let it go. That does huge damage. I'm pivoting into my Poliwrath, and it comes, and they are only going to make it to one charge move here. I know this is only enough for the Night Slash, so I will just let this go, and then hope I can deal with whatever is in the back. In the back is a Credilli, and that is absolutely massive because I can look to instantly debuff their attack with an Icy Wind. This is neutral. I mean, this is super effective damage as well, so they will end up committing a shield, and because I have a counter head start, I will be able to outpace this Credilli to the next charge move. They do end up going for the Rock Tomb, so I'm not confident that an Icy Wind would be enough to pick up the knockout here. I will full send the Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is also super effective. It picks up the knockout. We counter farm down the Scizor, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Fortress into Empoleon. So this is a okay lead. We are just going to stay in this matchup. The opponent is going to connect with a Hydro Cannon first, but that is okay. They end up going for a Drill Peck for some reason. I have no idea why. They end up pivoting into a Gastron. Gastron will be hit with the Sand Tomb. And Sand Tomb is going to be no shielded, but it does debuff their defense, and now in comes the KINGDRA. KINGDRA can survive any one charge move here. Body Slam is resisted. Water Pulse is double resisted. I have no idea why they went for that there, but that is okay because here comes a Swift, and Swift from this range should be enough to pick up the knockout. In comes a Wigglytuff in the back, which is really unfortunate, but I can make it to another Swift, and Swift is going to do some solid chip to the Wigglytuff in the back, but this is a really awkward situation to be in. I only have my Fortress. Poliwrath definitely does not want to see this Wigglytuff, so I am going to be forced to commit a shield. It is the Swift, which means now I can go for a Sand Tomb, lowering my opponent's defense so that I can easily get this counter farm down. And that's exactly what's going to happen. In comes the Poliwrath. Poliwrath going to be chipped massively by these charms, but I have to let this go because I need to save shields for that Empoleon in the back. They would be able to make it to a Drill Peck, which is super effective damage, and I know these Metal Sounds are resisted, so we get the full counter farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Fortress into Jumpluff. So this is an okay lead. So kind of surprised to see a Jumpluff here, considering the nerfs that we've seen. This has to be on double nuke now. There's virtually no reason to run Aerial Ace. They do end up full sending the Acrobatics, and I do get that shield call right. And now we'll be able to connect with a super effective Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will get shielded by my opponent, and then they're going to pivot into a Gastron, and now in comes KINGDRA. KINGDRA, of course, will get outpaced, but this is only enough for a Body Slam, so I can just let this go. Body Slam does some solid chip, but it's not enough to pick up the knockout. I will now go for the harder hitting Outrage, hoping that my opponent no shields this, as they do have enough energy for another Body Slam, but they do let that go. That does massive damage. It picks up the knockout. Back in comes the Jumpluff, but Jumpluff can't even get the super effective Fairy Wind farm down before I'm able to make it to a Swift. Swift puts them into the red health range, which is absolutely massive, because now in comes the Fortress. I'm going to save my shields for Poliwrath at this point, so I will just let this go. It is the Acrobatics that does massive damage. We are looking for the full Bug Bite farm down, and we do get it. In the back is a Abomasnow, and this could not be a better Pokemon to see in the back. It is Leafage, so I actually am going to stay in this matchup, go for all of these super effective Bug Bites. I've lowered their attack, and their Leafage are triple resisted, which means they're actually forced to throw energy. They can't even commit to the farm down, which means I can just come in with my Poliwrath, look for the full counter farm down. I don't even believe this is enough for the Energy Ball, but I will commit the shield just in case. It is just the Weather Ball, but that counter goes through, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Fortress into Shadow Fortress. So mirror leads, and this is an okay one. I'm going to play this matchup out a little bit differently than I have in the past. Now I'm going to go straight Rock Tomb, because as you're going to see here, my opponent is going to go straight Sand Tomb. And Sand Tomb, unfortunately, two of them are not enough to pick up the knockout, even with the buffed bug bite damage. And actually, I don't know if I've seen the shadow on shadow, so maybe it is in the shadow on shadow, but we do end up full setting the Rock Tomb. That picks up the knockout after a few more bug bites, and in comes a Fearow. Now, Fearow is a tricky Pokemon for this backline, especially if they're going to be up a lot of energy, but I can grab a shield with the Fortress and now just align my Kingdra. Kingdra will be able to take any one charge move because of that Rock Tomb debuff, but I won't be able to take two. I think two will just do too much damage, and yes, that is instantly the case, but I will just give my shield back. Now we are at shield parity, so as long as whatever is in the back is okay for Poliwrath, then we should be okay. In comes the Poliwrath. Poliwrath unable to get to an Icy Wind before the opponent makes it to a potential Outrage. They full send the Outrage, so that is a huge shield call. Now we're going to go for the Icy Wind, and do I full charge this? I do, but it leaves them at 1 HP, and now I'm no longer throwing a fast move because I do not want to give that Fearow any extra energy. They do end up going for the Outrage. Outrage does not pick up the knockout. They undercharge that. They get the snipe with the Peck, and that is a huge play by my opponent because now they're going to outpace me by a single turn to the next charge move, and so that undercharge was absolutely critical for them. I believe that was an undercharge. If not, I don't know why Poliwrath would have survived that from that HP, but massive play from my opponent, and they do deserve that win. For the 4-0 set, here is the ELO reveal to 2279, so absolutely huge. In the next matchup, we've got a Kingdra on the lead, and this is a pretty good lead. The opponent is going to safe switch into a Furret, and Furret will be met with Poliwrath. Poliwrath, of course, has a very dominant matchup here because Sucker Punch is resisted and counter is super effective. However, Trailblaze is super effective, so I will end up throwing some energy here in order to pick up the knockout on the Furret. The Furret is going to let that go. Back in comes the Kingdra, but Kingdra can't even get the full farm down before we're able to make it to another charge move. And Icy Wind will do some solid chip. It is neutral damage, resisted on water, but super effective on Dragon. It does some solid chip. Back in comes the Fortress, and in the back is a Shadow Quagsire. They do farm up all the way to the Stone Edge here, but guess what? I'm going to call the bait. No way you're full sending, but it's actually a Mud Bomb Quagsire, so they still are able to hit for neutral damage. That said, I can now go for the Swift bait, knowing my opponent is going to commit to this Quagsire, but it does not matter. They allow me to get to a second Swift, which is absolutely massive. This should grab the final shield from my opponent, and it does. Can we get to a third Swift? We actually make it to a third Swift. Kingdra going absolutely off in this game, picking up the knockout as well, winning that 2-0 shield scenario. That is absolutely incredible. Way to go, Kingdra. And that is why this Pokemon is just so incredible. The pacing on it is just amazing. Into the next match, we've got Fortress into our Shadow Fortress into Fortress. So we've seen this matchup before. We're going to play it out the exact same. This opponent ends up winning CMP over my Shadow Fortress, which is pretty unfortunate. I do have pretty solid IVs, unfortunately, on my Shadow Fortress, which means my Rock Tomb is not going to do as much damage as that Rock Tomb. But then I'm going to pivot into my Poliwrath. And the reason I'm doing this is because I know how safe Poliwrath is in this meta. So they do end up staying in, going for the Sand Tomb. In the back is a Kingdra. So Kingdra is, of course, not a great answer to Poliwrath. And we actually end up grabbing a shield with the Icy Wind, which is really nice. They will be forced to go for an Outrage in order to pick up the knockout here. So I will actually commit the shield. The opponent full sends the Outrage. That is the correct call, but I bank that Icy Wind for later, and now in comes the Fortress. Fortress will be able to force my opponent to throw their energy as soon as they get there, and it doesn't even pick up the knockout. Can I also make it to a Sand Tomb? I can. The resistant Dragon Breath just not doing that much damage, even against the Shadow Fortress. We actually pick up the knockout with the Sand Tomb. That was enough for my opponents. They resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Okay, Battle of the Bug Seals. Once again, we've got Fortress into Scizor. We're going to play this one out the exact same, hoping that this one does not get the boost. If this one gets the boost, this is absolutely rigged. They end up going for the Night Slash. They do not get the boost. That is absolutely massive. And now I can debuff their attack with a Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will end up grabbing a shield from my opponent. And now I know I can just let this go, as Night Slash will not do nearly as much damage. We live that in the red. In comes the Poliwrath. Poliwrath is going to be met with a Bullet Seed Credilli, but because Bullet Seed Credilli was a little bit slow on the swap, I'm able to outpace, make it to an Icy Wind, and Icy Wind is super effective. It doesn't grab a shield from the opponent, but guess what? If Credilli is your best answer for Poliwrath, you better believe I am shielding this up. Grass Knot will grab the shield. I get the full counter farm down. They cannot make it to a Trailblaze on their Scizor, so they have to come in with whatever it is in the back, and in the back is a Kingdra. I am going to go for the Icy Wind to debuff their attack pretty much right away, and then I will look to pivot into my Fortress to either force them out of this matchup or to grab a shield, but the opponent ends up switching into the Scizor. Scizor gets hit with the Sand Tomb. That picks up the knockout. Back in comes the Kingdra, but Kingdra just does not have enough energy here to get to two outrages, one for my Poliwrath and one for my Kingdra. They will end up going for a charge move pretty much right away against my Poliwrath. It is just Swift, and if they get the full counter farm down, this could be dangerous. So I pivot into my Kingdra. They make it to one final charge move. Is this enough for the outrage? It's not. It's just a Swift, which means we get the Dragon Breath farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into, I believe, the final match of the video, we've got Fortress into our friend Gastrodon on the lead. Gastrodon, of course, will get outpaced by one single turn. We make it to the Sand Tomb one turn before they're able to get to a Water Pulse, which is huge because we can chip them a little bit, and now these Bug Bites will start to add up. I will probably commit a shield here. It's very unlikely that the opponent baits, but this opponent actually does bait, and then they come in with Furret. Furret now will be met with the Poliwrath. We've seen this before. We can no-shield the Trailblaze and live it despite it being super effective. It's boosting their Sucker Punches, but those Sucker Punches are resisted, and now I will look to pick up the knockout with the Dynamic Punch before they're able to make it to a Swift. Dynamic Punch does pick up the knockout on the Furret. Is it going to be, no, it's going to be their closer in the back in a Talonflame. Talonflame unable to get the full farm down before I'm able to get to an Icy Wind. This will lower the opponent's attack, which means if they want to get the full farm down, I'm in a pretty good situation here. In comes the Kingdra, back in comes the Gastrodon. Gastrodon will be met with the Sand Tomb. And because they baited, they will be able to pick up the knockout here. They should be able to get to a Water Pulse. But I'm actually going to stop tapping, let them pick up the knockout on me because I actually need to get the farm down here, but they get damage registration error once again, so they don't actually go down. They should have gone down to that Dragon Breath before they got off the Body Slam, which means I had to let that go. I should have been able to survive one fly. My opponent knows that they've already won this game, so they full send the Blizzard. But yeah, I should have been able to probably win that game because I could have just no-shielded a fly and then just look for the full farm down. But unfortunately, they get damage registration error, which is a very inconsistent feature in this game. And it does end up winning them that match. But overall, you saw in these matchups, Kingdra put in a load of work. This thing was absolutely incredible, and just the pacing is just lightning fast. Getting into the Swifts every 9 turns and then 8 on the 4th time around is just truly incredible. And then even Outrage at 15 is really not bad. That's 7.5 2-turn fast moves is what that's equal to, which is really, really good for a nuke move such as Outrage, especially with that Shadow stab bonus on the Kingdra. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. I do want to say a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel, Benny Hemlock, Dr. Mustache, Soham Patil, and Eliana, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitton, Musaju, Noodleman, Speedster, Esteros, Liminal Lagmorph, Tom Spencer, Fast 80 Boss, Jamie Finn, CD Salaskas, and Castle. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.